For people who don't know your country very well and have heard the name Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, they've heard all kinds of things. There is a claim that you have helped your friends get wealthy because you're the Prime Minister.
I have only one friend, the Hungarians.
Every person I've spoken with thanks you and agrees with you for your immigration policy. Travel to London and Paris, it's unrecognizable.
The number of migrants in this country is zero. We are proud of it. And we have to pay $1 million every day just because we don't let the migrants into this country. That's absolutely a tyranny.
Hungary is facing some serious threats.
In Hungary, we are living in an extra dangerous time.
Mr. Prime Minister, it is a great pleasure to sit with you here in Hungary. There is no better way to learn about the world than to actually go travel and see it for yourself. And so here we are sitting with you.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine.
So I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room. For people who don't know your country very well and have heard the name Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, they've heard all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I'd like to bring these things to you and allow you to address them.
Please.
With all respect, of course. The first and most common...
You start with the negative or the positive?
I am going to start with the negative, and then we're going to go into a lot of wisdom.
Good.
So let's just get it out of the way. There are claims that since you've become prime minister, while the country is flourishing, and believe me, I walked around day and night, people seem very happy. They seem like they're relaxed and calm. But the claim is that you have helped your friends get wealthy because you're the prime minister. And so there is a claim that your opposition has that you have played favoritism and allowed your friends to get rich.
Okay, first on economy, yeah? It would be good to have only good news on the Hungarian economy. Unfortunately, not everything is shining, as probably you see on the street, because the last 4 years were rather difficult. After the COVID, a good trend of strong economic growth was interrupted, and then the war is coming and the sanctions. So now the situation is not, the inflation is far higher than it should be. So I can't say that everybody is 100% satisfied with me or with the economic policy what we are running here. But there are some results. Full employment. It's something which is really respected by the people, and probably the strongest family subsidizing system in the world. Okay, that's about the good thing. Bad thing, accusations. It's not true. I can't run that kind of favoritism just simply because the regulations are very tough. We are part of the European Union. The same regulation we have here than in Berlin or in Paris or in Amsterdam. The public procurement system is the same, almost the same everywhere, and I have to follow that rule. And we are performing quite well on the ranking of public procurement execution on the European context. So I think this accusation is simply not fair.
Why do you think they're accusing you of this?
Do you know the famous saying of Margaret Thatcher? Margaret Thatcher said that I'm always happy when I'm personally criticized with nasty things because it means that they cannot attack my policy.
Yeah, and homonym attacks. I get that. That's a fair accusation. So you're planning on running again as prime minister here in Hungary, is that right?
Yes.
Some people are saying that you've been here for so long, 16 years, and only a dictator can be a prime minister for this long. What's your response to that?
It's not 16, it's 20.
It would be, right?
No, 20 already. Because, 16 in a row, 16 years in a row. But between 98 and 2002, I had another 4 years term. So altogether, as prime minister, I spent 20 years in power, which is really a record. But at the same time, I spent 16 years in opposition as leaders of the opposition. So I'm not just the record holder of being in power in the European politics, I'm a record holder as serving as the leader of the opposition. So I know both sides of the coins. So if sometimes we are on that side and on the other one, it's democracy, it's not dictatorship.
So when people say to you, well, shouldn't you give the space to somebody else to give them a chance?
Yeah, I should. They are right.
but you are still running again.
No, because I think at this moment I'm the best in my party. Sorry to say that. I try to be as humble as I can. But if we would like to win the election, we have to run in our best shape and form. And the public opinion inside the political community I belong to is that at this moment, the interest of this community to be led by me. That's the reason I'm doing so. If they would say that we have a young talent who is far better than you, we would like to support to have a new prime minister candidate, I would say, good luck, go ahead, I'm ready to support you. But at this moment, if you would like to continue, the best chance to continue is on my side.
Do you see yourself...
Because unfortunately, it's obvious that I cannot give the power to another political camp who is representing totally different, which is my convictions and ideas and our principles and our political achievements. So we simply cannot say, please lead the country somebody else who will destroy what we have built up in the last 16 years.
I think an interesting point to make is that Hungary is facing some serious threats, maybe not entirely from within, but given that you are living in the middle of so many different issues. You have Russia and Ukraine on one side. You have the EU, which you may not always agree with on many things. The leader of Hungary has to really understand what Hungary wants and really have the willpower to fight for it. And you have been fighting mostly against some of the policies that the EU has been trying to project on you. And so maybe you can talk a little bit about your vision of Hungary and its place within the EU.
Okay, I would not like to bore you with the Hungarian history, but to live in danger, that's the normal way of life here, just because we are speaking about a 10 million size country. The number of inhabitants is 10 million here. So if you have a 10 million country and from left side, you have Berlin, the Germans. On the right side, you have Moscow, the Russians, and down south is Constantinople, which is called Istanbul, and the Turkish. And you are living just in the middle of that. You are living always in the danger, So if you are a politician, you are always be aware that to run this country requires a strong concentration and awareness of what kind of danger could come from the international situation we are living in. So that's the normal way of life. But now we are living in an extra dangerous time for two reasons. First is Ukraine. It's a war. There's a war between Ukraine and Russia, and Ukraine is a neighboring country. So when there is a war in your neighboring country, it's always an extra danger. Plus, this war is not just a war between Ukraine and Russia. This is a proxy war of the West with the Russians, and we belong to the West, so getting more and more dangerous. That's one thing. The other one, in Brussels, the other danger is coming from Brussels, because now in Brussels, that was not the case, let's say 15 years ago, but now clearly this is the case. Now in Brussels, they would like to build up a United States of Europe, a kind of empire. Some countries love it, some countries don't. We belong to the sovereignist, we don't like it. So we don't like the Brazilian centralized bureaucracy, center of the new empire, which define how we have to live here in Hungary. So we are sovereignists and freedom fighters. So there is one challenge from Brussels, a kind of superpower in the European Union, and we have a direct war danger coming from Ukraine, which is the proxy war of the West with Russia. So this is the situation where we are living.
People who are critical of you, they say that you're almost wishy-washy in some ways, where, well, you're kind of friends with China, but you're kind of friends with the West, but you're kind of friends with the United States, but you're kind of friends with the EU. And I think as you explain this tricky situation that you're in, it's becoming clearer to me why you have to be in this situation.
I have only one friend, the Hungarians. So I understand that if you are an American or a Chinese or a Russian, you can see it as a wishy-washy because we have a good relation at the same time with Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, at the same time President Xi. And we have a good relation with the President of the United States, and we have a good relation with Vladimir Putin. And you can see, if you are not a Hungarian, it's wishy-washy. But if you are a Hungarian, it's easy to understand. What is the interest of the Hungarians? Our interest is to collect friends and to have good relation with all the main powers. That's normal. That's what I'm doing. I serve the interest of the country. I would not like to join one block of the country, the West, East, whatever. I would like to maintain the sovereign room for maneuvering of our foreign policy and to maintain the national sovereignty of this country. So what I'm doing is clearly serving the interest of the Hungarian people because they are my friend.
Do you think that that's one of the reasons that the EU is upset with you? Because they want you to ally with them and you don't always ally with them?
First of all, we should define what is European Union and Brussels. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So they should be our servant. Because the European Union is not about Brussels and the European institutions. The European Union is about the member states, the sovereign member states. So the European center, Brussels, should serve as a service center for the members who belong to the alliance of the nations called European Union. So I don't, Ursula von der Leyen, who is the head of the Commission, is a bureaucrat who is paid by me. Sorry to be so blunt, but this is the case. So we cannot accept that she's behaving like the boss of Hungary. This is not the case, because we are a sovereign country, and they don't like it in Brussels, you are right.
What are your thoughts on how Donald Trump negotiated with her recently and the results of the tariffs?
It's a long story how we can evaluate that outcome. Okay, the tariff is one thing. Okay, if you have a lightweight negotiator on one side and a heavyweight deal maker on the other side, you can see the outcome, obviously. And of course, we lost. We will pay 15% tariffs to the United States, and United States will pay 0. Okay, it's a lost match, yeah? Okay, but this is not the main problem. We have to deal with that. It's not easy, but there's an even major challenge of that, because the head of the Commission made an agreement which consists of 3 more things, not just the tariffs. So it's a package. First is that we will buy 700 billion euro energy from you. The question is who? Von der Leyen will buy it, or Brussels, or the Commission. The Commission has no authority, no money, no reason to buy anything. So if the President of the United States would like to make a deal on energy, the right person to make it with is not the head of the Commission, but me and the other leaders of the European Union member states. Because we can buy, she never. So she made a promise which not a position of the member states. Then we agreed, Ursula von der Leyen, the head of the Commission, made a deal that we will invest $600 billion into your economy under the circumstances when we have lack of capital here in Europe. But Brussels has no money to invest. So who made the deal with President Trump? Somebody who has no legitimacy to do so. So it will be never fulfilled, or I don't know who will fulfill that agreement. Then there is a secret chapter of this agreement, if I understand correctly, that's something about Ukraine. And I think this is the most important and most dangerous point. As we are informed, there is a deal that the United States will sell weapons to the Ukrainians in a way that it will be paid by the European Union. But who will pay for that? Because Brussels cannot do so. So again, tariff is one thing, but then there are 3 other points when the President of the United States made a deal with somebody who has no chance to fulfill that obligation. So I think it will create a lot of difficulties and discourses in the future. Because President Trump will say, why this agreement is not fulfilled? We said, it's not our deal. You made a deal with the President of the Commission. Go there, not to Hungary, not to Germany, not to the European countries. So if United States would like to make a deal on energy, on weapons, on investments, it's better to go to the member states' capitals, not to Brussels.
It's interesting the way you perceive the role of the EU versus the way the EU perceives its own role. It seems to be this recurring theme, right? They come to you and say, you have to take this number of immigrants and then you say, I'm not willing to take this number of immigrants, and then they fine you $1 million a day, and you say, I'll take the fine, you're not the boss of me, right? It seems like this is this constant cycle that is happening between you and the EU.
So the fact is that serving so long, as you have mentioned, I was there how the strategy was changed in Brussels. Till the starting point of head of the Commission, Juncker, the self-understanding and self-definition of the Europe institutions were more like, as I expressed and I wished to see so, it was a kind of center to help the member states. The Commission never perceived itself as a boss of the member states. But when Juncker, it was 12 or 13 years ago, decided that as a new president of the Commission, he will convert the Commission from a neutral body into a political body, the change has happened. And he did so. We protested unsuccessfully, and they converted the Commission into a political body. If it's not a servant or a background institution or a coordination center, but a political body, it has a different logic. Because power comes into the game. And now that's going on. That's why we, minor countries of European Union, are suffering so much, because they behave not as somebody who should help us, but somebody who would like to rule us. That's an example you have mentioned is the migration. Okay, what is migration discussion about? Brussels thinks that they can decide we Hungarians with whom should live with. But how is it possible that somebody living in Brussels will make a decision that Hungary has to let somebody into this country with whom we would not like to live with? So the question is, who will decide about the composition of the population of this country? Nobody else can decide about it, only we. Otherwise, we are not a free country. And they would like to make that decision. They would like to make a decision how we should live and with whom. So we reject it. What is the answer on behalf of Brussels? Fine. We have to pay $1 million every day just because we don't let the migrants into this country. The number of migrants in this country is 0. We are proud of it. I'm very proud of it. So nobody can cross the border line of this country without the permission coming from the Hungarian authorities. So we defend our border line, we defend the sovereignty, we defend the security and safety of this country. So no migration policy as the Westerners are doing. And we have to pay for that $1 million. It's absolutely a tyranny. It's a tyranny. A migration issue belonging to the main core of the sovereignty of each member state. They cannot influence on that. And especially they cannot fine, they cannot punish. But that's going on, unfortunately. But we are still alive.
What's interesting is I spent the last couple of days here walking around Budapest, the town, and there are people who agree with you and people who don't agree with you. But unilaterally, every person I've spoken with thanks you and agrees with you for your immigration policy. I have not found one person, believe me, I've been looking, who said Prime Minister Orban was wrong on immigration. They have visited the UK, they have visited France, and then they come back here and then they say, thank God. I may have been wrong about Prime Minister Orban in the past when it came to immigration, but we feel like he saved our country. Travel to the West, to London and Paris, it's unrecognizable. And so why do you think the EU is doing this? To look at Paris and to look at London and then to force you to do the same?
This is a puzzle which torture us for years and years, because for a normal mindset, it's difficult to understand that countries, westward, Hungary, had wonderful life, wonderful countries, safe, prosperous, so high-level culture. So it's really the best part of the world, probably, to live in the Western European city. And the leaders of that part of the world decided to let it gone with the wind. And now they have a different life, which is full of danger on the streets, the threat of terrorism, unbearable economic burden of the migrants because somebody should finance them, and the totally different ethnic composition and the totally different cultural composition of their society. And it's difficult to understand why they have let it happen. In Hungary, when this issue come up to the surface, I decided first to stop the migrants at the border. It was not easy because there was no physical borderline. So we have to erect a fence.
You built a wall?
Long wall, yeah, a long one. That's the first. But then, because the discussion started with the European Union, my question was how I can defend the Hungarian position in Brussels under circumstances when Berlin and Paris equally attacking us because we don't follow their policy. And the answer was only people. So I organized a referendum and I asked the people, what is your opinion? So Hungary is the only European country when the people decided about what kind of migration policy the country should follow. So I'm very proud not just to stop the migrants, but I'm very proud that this country is the only one in Europe when I have a chance to represent the real will, the real decision of the people on the issue of migration. That's the reason I'm surviving. So when I'm attacked in Brussels, I said, guys, I understand all your arguments. We can discuss it. It could be intellectually even inspiring, whatever. But it's democracy. People decided that this is the case. No migration.
Amazingly, the thing that you're most proud of, which is immigration, your immigration policy, is the thing that you're most attacked for.
That's because of George Soros, your fellow countryman, who is a Hungarian anyway.
I think we both reject him categorically.
So he's by origin a Hungarian and he's an American citizen as well. And he made me famous. So it's, I don't know, it's thanks to the God or thanks to George Soros, or that was the way how God helps me to make famous, but it was done directly
by
George.
So you think it's part of this globalist agenda to try to erase the countries?
The story is more simple than that. When the migration has started and the huge scandal and discussion started in Europe, I published a document, a 5-point solution on the migration crisis for Europe. It was a public paper, widely discussed, 5 points. No migration, basically. And then just a few weeks later, George Soros himself, he published another paper, an anti-paper, may I say, that 6 points of George Soros, how to manage the migration. It was totally the opposite what I have written. So it became a public discussion between him and me. And then because he had the international reputation and the media background, this discussion grew up, or rocketed to the sky and made my name known, It's not because of my good governance or something, just because of having an open conflict with George Soros. It was quite rare up to there, because George Soros and other guys like him try to work under the table, sub rosa, so they are never on the public. But because of the discussion, he became a well-known person as well, and the public discussion started because he was a pro-migration position of his 6 points paper he published in the papers, and my paper with 5 points. So that's how the discussion between George Soros and Hungary, Brussels and Hungary evolved. That's why it became so internationally known discussion.
But the other, American who I'm not so proud of is the former ambassador from the United States who wrote an article recently about you. And his criticism of you is that the LGBTQ pride parade got canceled. And he laments over the fact that there isn't pride freedom here in Hungary.
Okay, it's really a nasty article he has written on not only on me but on Hungary. Okay, on
and
me.
On President Trump. I'll add to that too.
That was the only positive point, because he said that I am so bad guy as President Trump. I became very famous. We're very proud of it. So that's probably the first case in our history that somebody says that the Hungarian Prime Minister policy is very much the same as the policy of the President of the United States. Okay,
so that's a very, very good point.
So that was a good point, but the statement he made was really nasty and unfair. and fake. Okay, on pride, that's a complicated issue. So if I would like to define exactly what is the situation here, the Constitution says that the right of the protection of the children is the number one freedom right here, more important than anything else. So therefore, if there is a clash among or between the basic rights, like freedom of gathering and child protection, there's a superiority of child protection. So what does it mean? It means that if somebody would organize a pride, which is a public sexuality on the street, it could be homosexual or not homosexual, whatever, but sexuality on the street, it's not allowed in Hungary. But if you would like to have a protest, normally dressed, going somewhere and come together and say, we are demonstrating for the pride, you can do so. Because freedom of gathering and freedom of speeches is very strong here in Hungary. So you can do it. You can even express your opinion in favor of the pride without any limitation, but you cannot organize on the streets open sexual propaganda, which is the pride.
So there's a physical element to the pride parade that is so visual. And so when children are watching, they see these visual nudity, and that was what concerned you.
Exactly.
Very interesting.
Not me. It's the law. It's the Constitution.
So virtually any sort of parade that exhibits nudity and sexuality is something that is against the law here in Hungary.
Even it's heterosexual. You can't do that.
You know, you mentioned freedom of speech, which as we were walking in, I mentioned to you that I actually feel like in Hungary, even I as an American, who I have no rights here, I feel like there is more freedom of speech here than in London. I have friends who are being arrested in London for lack of freedom of speech, where anybody here, I've asked whether they're against you or for you. I also asked, do you feel like you have the freedom to speak? And I would even whisper it. And they would say, absolutely, absolutely. I may not agree with the prime minister on everything. I do have freedom of speech. Do you think there is a place where freedom of speech should be curtailed? I mean, you have a very strong value-oriented administration. Do you think that there is a version of freedom of speech that can actually take away the opportunity from maintaining the national values of your country?
Okay. One remark on freedom of speech. Okay, you have mentioned one story in UK, but there are even worse stories in the Western countries. So if you have an opinion publicly on certain points which is against the mainstream, you can lose your job.
Yes.
You know, that's tyranny.
Yeah.
It could never happen here in Hungary.
We've experienced it with PragerU, by the way.
But you know, in Hungary it's impossible. We are coming from a communist regime. You know, communist regime is a real tyranny. Mm-hmm. So in Hungary, everybody is a freedom lover people. So it's impossible to say that we disagree with you, therefore you can't express your opinion. It's unacceptable. So even we are strongly committed to defend certain values, Christian values, national values, whatsoever, but not by the force of the law, but by force of arguments. So I think we have very good arguments how to defend our values. There is no need to say, stop, shut up, you can't represent your point because it's going against me. No, we can't do that. We say, okay, let's go ahead with your points. Let's have a fair discussion, and then everybody can see whose values are stronger. So we still have that kind of old-fashioned, traditional freedom of speech. We believe the strength of our arguments.
So you would say the truth is not insecure. And so if people here don't share your Christian beliefs, let's say they're Muslim or atheist or Jewish, are they second-class citizens or are they treated equally here?
You should know that under the communist regime, the religious community was persecuted strongly. The religious faith as such was considered as a misunderstanding from the point of view of the Marxism, the human development or something like that. You were really second class even more. So therefore in Hungary, everybody is very sensitive to the religious issue. So nobody can limit you to express your religious beliefs. So in Hungary, it could never happen. So the law is very strict and very much guaranteeing all the freedom for each kind of religious conviction. There are some discussions anyway on what kind of tax evasions, allowances could be attached to certain activities, which are the historical churches, all that kind of thing. But it has nothing to do with to express of your own faith. So it's absolutely, I think it's a fair country. So if you are a Muslim or even Jewish, because we have probably the biggest Jewish community of Europe living here. France was the number one, but now it's decreasing because of the Muslim community and the Jewish community is leaving France. But I think now probably Hungary or Budapest is the strongest Jewish community homeland. So we are very sensitive to defend their own right, even to the Jewish community. Muslims, they are very tiny, so very, very limited. Atheists, we have many anyway. And another, which is sometimes even more exciting, different concept and understanding of Christianity than you have. I'm a Calvinist, 25% of this country, but there are Catholics, 75%. So sometimes we have nice discussions anyway, but it's not against your faith or something like that. So discussions on religious issues could happen. It's nice. It's not belonging to the intellectual part of your personal life and not as a political issue.
What does Western Europe look like now with, I would define it as a God-sized hole in people's hearts? There seem to have moved away from Christianity, which created a vacuum. To an outsider, it appears as if people have found other religions in the West outside of Christianity. Here in Hungary, there seems to be more of a sense that their Christianity is part of people's lives. But I'm curious, what is your view of religion in Europe? And is it being filled with Islam? Is that what's happening in Paris and London? Are people starving of religious beliefs, and that's why Islam is becoming more of a dominant faith?
May I answer first on Christianity and then on the mixed society in the West? Christianity here, it's a complicated matter. So we have to be always very, very cool down temper when we discuss this point, because this is the most important point of our life anyway. So first of all, we define what we call the living faith. Yeah, living faith means that you were so lucky that you find your way to the God, and you can make your decision that you follow the example of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ follower by heart. That's the living faith. Unfortunately, the number of that community is not growing. Under the communist regime, it was the strong reduction, and the revival is going very slowly. So we are still suffering. The minority of the society probably have what we call the living Christian faith. It's difficult to say anyway, but that's my impression. But in Central Europe, we have another category we call the Christian culture. Christian culture is a set of values, a teaching, which is shared and followed by even those persons who don't have a living faith, but as a tradition. But tradition and teaching. Tradition is coming from the past. Teaching has relevance for the future. It's a teaching. It's a guideline.
So it's more rules and less heart.
Yes. More rules, less heart. Yeah, okay. Exactly. But because the culture is based on Christian roots here, at the same time is the whole cultural context. If you look at the buildings or going in the museums or going to the theaters or public places, the majority simply, you can feel that it's Christian. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the Christian and the Constitution understands it. The Hungarian Constitution says that the Christianity is the final shelter of the nation, and Hungarian nation cannot survive without the Christianity, because this is our historical experience. That's why we separate the living faith and the Christian culture. Look at the Mongolian invasion, then the Ottoman invasion, then the Nazis, who were anti-Christians anyway, and then the communists. They all attacked at the same time the nation and the Christianity. So for us, it's obvious that if there is no Christianity, the nation has no future. So, and I think the majority of the people share that point, even if they don't have living faith. So that's a specialty here. Why, even the sentence in the Constitution that each state organ has a duty to help to preserve and maintain the Christianity. And nobody protested against that because we all feel that it's true. Okay, so that's where we are. Okay, the West. The West are in trouble because they lost even the cultural Christianity. That's a long story. But where they are at this moment, as we see from here, from Central Europe, that they decided to build up so-called mixed societies, where there is a Christian tradition and still living Christian community, and there is a growing Muslim community. I had a lot of discussions. I have a lot of discussions with many leaders. And I think mainly they did not lie. So what they have said was true. And my impression was that they are truly convicted that if the Christian community and the Muslim-based community is mixed up in a country, the outcome will be a liberal society.
Multiculturalism.
Multicultural. And I said, do you have any evidence of that? That kind of multicultural society will be a better way of life than it was previously? And they said, there is no evidence, but we believe it. I said, don't you think that the risk is too high to make that kind of laboratorium out of your country? I said, let's do it. And I said, okay, if you see that it could be a successful laboratorium activity, let's do it. But please don't force us to follow you. Because if you are not convinced 100% that it's true and it provides a better future, why you would like to follow the poor Hungarians to follow the same track? Because we think the level of the risk is too high. And that's exactly what's going on. Terrorism, safety net is over, economic difficulties, and growing Muslim community and shrinking Christian community, and nobody knows exactly where this process will arrive. So it's very risky. That's the reason why we decide to maintain the cultural identity of this country. By migration, we would not like to change the composition of our country. This is a decision of the Hungarian nation, which is based on our sovereign right. Nobody, even the Brusselians, cannot force us to change it. That's the story, how we see. I'm sure that my grandkids will never see that Germany and France, what I have admired so much 15 years ago.
You mentioned that the French have tried to mix, right? I think when I think of mixing, I think of the melting pot. In the United States, earlier years, we had a melting pot, but we did teach American values. Kids would go through the schools and in the churches, and American values were taught. What happened in the United States with multiculturalism is that we let people in, and then we let everybody just live their own ways, live their own truth, live their own communities. We treated people as multiculturalist rather than Americans, and rather than having a melting pot of one united nation, we had one nation that is incredibly divided. So I don't know if the French actually mixed people. I think they did that multiculturalism experience where they let everybody come in and maybe mix physically, but they never actually mixed on a values level because there was no underlying concept of what it was to be a French person. If you move to France, do you take on these values and do you commit to these values? So in Hungary, are you able to teach what it is to be a Hungarian? Because I think ultimately, as we say at PragerU, education gets you into this mess. Only education can get you out. If you're not going to inculcate your values into your community, how are you going to expect them to know what it means to be part of this nation?
Okay, I have a very conservative view on that. So, first of all, to explain a little bit to the American viewers, so Hungary was never a multicultural society. Hungary was always a Christian society. Ethnically, there were diverse groups Romanians, Serbians, Slovakians, even Germans, but all based on the Christian civilization. So we have never accepted anybody by big groups. Okay, individually it could happen, but it was never a policy to accept big group of persons coming from other civilizations to live together with us, because there was no need to do so. But America is a different story. Western Europe could be a different story because they had, internationally, they occupied and invaded many countries and they tried to behave in an imperialistic way, and it has a consequence now. Okay, that's the Western European story. But the Hungarian story is different. So what I'm doing here, sorry, I would not like to be unpolite. So I would like to keep my country out of that dilemma. How to behave those who have different civilizational background and living in the same country with you. So we don't have that dilemma because we have zero migrants. It's a Christian country. And why should we mix it up? We love it as it is. They can come, they can work, there is a regulation, but this country belongs to the Christian Hungarians, So that's our story. That sounds probably unpolite, but we don't need your discussion. I understand your problem, and if I could contribute, I would be happy. But my job is not to find a good answer in your discussion, but to keep Hungary out of this whole dilemma.
So are you able to teach young Hungarians what it means to be a Hungarian, or are they impacted by the EU, who is obviously trying to go after young Hungarian minds?
Very difficult question. First of all, don't forget that the kids are our kids.
Yeah.
So probably teachers and especially Brussels can have some fake influence on the kids, but basically we are the daddies. So we are the parents. So we have a duty and the possibility to form how they grow up and how they think about the world, and to introduce them into the very complex dilemma of the human being. So the parents cannot put aside their responsibility and just showing the school and Brussels and so on, because the number one duty is in our heart, Yeah. So if the young generation does not look good and does not follow the national identity, dear parents, it's your problem. Yeah. So I would not like to get rid of that responsibility. That's first. But second, in Hungary, to educate the kids about what does it mean being Hungarian is easier than in many countries because of the language. We have a so unique ancient language coming from the old ages, Nobody else is able to speak it. So if you speak Hungarian, you are a Hungarian. You can have a discussion, what does it mean exactly to be Hungarian? What is the common mission of this community? How we should serve the God, or how we should serve human universal values or whatever, so we can discuss it. But the fact is that you speak Hungarian, we are Hungarian. It's easy. So the roots of the community, a feeling of being belonging to the same community, it's easy to find because of the language.
There's something so profound in
Sorry, and that's the reason why when we read in the textbooks that the national states or nationalism is belonging to a certain chapter of the human modern history, we are just laughing at it, because we occupied this country 1,100 years ago. We arrived here from Asia, having our own culture and language. And because that language was so alien for all the others, for us, for more than 1,000 years, it's obvious what is nation, because it's culturally defined. It's not a modern thing. Here for the Hungarians, it's an existential question. It's the only way of life. To be Hungarian is the only possibility for my life to live.
What's so profound about what you say is the significant role that the parent plays in the child's education, which, by the way, is very different from what a communist would generally say, or what many of the countries in the Western world would say, where it's the government's role to educate the children.
French Revolution impact.
Right? You have the French Revolution, you have the insistence of having a Department of Education that will take over the education of a child. We have that fight right now in the United States of America. More and more Americans are actually waking up and saying, wait a second, we are the parents. It's our parental rights, right? It is incumbent upon us to teach our children what it is that they need to learn. And I guess here in Hungary, you are focusing on the parents, inculcating into their children what it is that they need to believe. I think that when parents like me hear about you all the way in Los Angeles, California, we think about you as the pro-parent prime minister. for two reasons. One is because you do empower the parents to inculcate values. And the other reason is you support working moms, which is something that is almost unheard of in any other country. And I'd love to hear more about that policy and how that came about.
Okay. Probably this is the point I'm more proud of than migration, the family policy here. What was my observation several decades ago? What is the real danger for the families and for the nation in longer term as well? Divorces. This is the modern world. If the parents decide to divorce, nobody can stop it. But it has a consequence. The moms remain alone. And especially in Hungary, I realized that they will find themselves in a totally unstable financial condition. And to decide on whether to have one kid, two kids, a third kids, having no stable background, knowing how fragile the marriages are and the families are, they are reluctant to have as many kids as they would like to have. And that's the reason why the target of our family policy is on the moms. So we try to strengthen financially the moms to become strong enough to keep together the family and to stand, if it is necessary, to stand alone on their own basis, with the kids. So therefore, we introduced the tax allowances of those who have kids, huge sum of money. You can decrease your taxation. If you have 3 kids, you basically don't pay any tax. Probably by 2 kids, neither. It depends a little bit how much money you earn. So that's the first. We double these tax allowances just now.
So a working mom with 3 children will pay zero income tax?
Zero income tax.
Forever?
Tax. No. First regulation was till the kids are young. And from this October, they will pay forever.
Forever, no income tax?
Regardless how old the kids are. Absolutely tax income free, everybody. Even from the beginning of the next year, those moms who has 2 kids, the same, they will not pay any income tax anymore till the end of their life.
So does the moms just love you?
I don't know. Politics is more complicated. So
it's not politics is not a rational thing, right?
Yeah. So I don't know what they think. I don't know how they vote, but I think it's good for them, and I do it.
Yeah, it's interesting when you bring up that the danger is that women don't want to have children because they're afraid that they're going to be divorced and left with the children. What much of the West tells women is, yes, that's probably going to happen, and therefore you should freeze your eggs and get a career and not have children because you might be left with children and no money. And so you decided to address that same, I guess, fear that women have, but actually incentivize them to have kids.
But at the same time, I have to be very cautious because the Hungarians don't like to see a government which is interfering into their private life. So if somebody, a lady, decide that they would not like to have any kids at all, it's her decision. So I would not like to force them to punish or whatever. It's her personal decision. But those moms, those women who decide to have kids, they did some extra efforts, which is important for the community. It's a private matter, of course, but important for the community. If there are no kids, no future, no nation. So therefore, we have to praise those women who decide to have an extra effort, not just to live, not just to keep the husband, in a proper shape, not just to go to work, but at the same time, to raise the kids. So it's something extra what the community should praise. So that's why we introduced that regulation. I think it works. And sooner or later, even in the demography, we will see the good impact, but it takes time.
You mentioned what you think or you fear that France and England are going to look like in 20 years because of their immigration policies, et cetera. What do you think Hungary is going to look like in 15 or 20 years?
Great and rich. That's my program.
That's your plan.
That's the plan. Make Hungary great again. That's why I like your president. To be brave and to have clear targets, simple and clear targets, and go to the direction. I'm very optimistic on the future of the Hungarians. Okay, I'm biased, but it's a great nation. It's good people. So many talented men, not just from the elite, but from a nowhere corner of this country. Somehow, hugely talented guys are just coming from a small village up to the science, culture, sports, whatever. So it's a born talent country, and if they are able to understand that the only way to be successful is to make efforts and not to go to the leftist illusion that you can sit at home and wait the money and the redistribution money is coming, which is always a danger here. This is the essence of the leftist politics, that kind of temptation. So if the people of Hungarians are ready to reject that temptation and they would like to go ahead on their own, by their own path and by their own plan, it's a very successful country. It will be. We survived so many. We lost 2 world wars, both. Then we got communist regime and Soviet Union, bloody decades for 40, 45 years. And we are still here and we have a good chance. We are successful. So good to be a Hungarian, just as a summary.
You think you'll still be part of the EU?
The question is whether the EU will exist. Hungary will still exist when European Union, even the memory is disappearing, I'm sure.
Final question. I'm sitting here as an American, got an interesting view of your country. If you could speak to my country, the United States of America, what would you like to say to us?
Okay. Trust the president. That's first, because he would like to do something extraordinary, important thing for the world. Probably for America as well, it's your job, but for the world. So if there is no that president in the United States, the world would be in a deep, deep trouble. So the liberal globalist approach to the human being life would prevail everywhere. The only reason why we were able to stop it, it's not Hungary, it's too small, because of your president. And now it's stopped. Now the globalist approach and nihilism is just stopped because of him. So a lot of discussions could happen about his policies going on everywhere, whether positive, negative. But his mission is the most important thing in the globe, not just now. So if I can ask anything from Budapest to the American citizens, keep your president high and up, and then help him to make peace, because we are in trouble here of the conflicts, not only in Ukraine, Russia, but in Middle East as well. And we need a country and we need a president who is devoted 100% to generate peace. And you have that man.
Do you think it's fair to expect President Trump of the United States of America to get involved in the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, even though it's so far from us?
That would be never my advice. My advice was always just the opposite. Don't be involved. But make a deal with the Russians. If you make a deal with if the two big bosses, the Russians and the Americans, directly can negotiate and put together a plan how the world should look like in the future, it's not just about the Ukraine-Russian war. It's about armament, disarmament, energy, many issues. If these two leaders are able to make a deal, among them the points the war, peace will come. This is the way, not to involve. Just keep yourself out and then manage a bigger deal, a bigger package with everybody, mainly the Russians. That would be my humble advice.
Well, I think it's very interesting because you have always said that getting involved in the Ukrainian-Russian war was not something that you wanted to do. And so nobody thinks of you as an interventionist. In America, there is a new segment of the population that believes in isolationism. But it doesn't sound to me from what you're describing that you think that America should be isolationist either. No. It's not my job. It's the decision of the American people. Sure.
But from a Hungarian point of view, what we need, an America which is not involved into the war, because any involvement into that war just lengthening the war, but remaining out and to make a big deal which can long-term solid basis for the cooperation of the big powers. It's not isolationism. That's a different story.
Well, it was really a pleasure sitting with you. We covered a lot. I don't know if there's anything else that you feel like we haven't covered. I'm happy to go into it. Otherwise, I just, wish you luck. I really enjoyed getting to know your country here. And, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I wish good luck to you as well. And God bless America and the Hungarians, of course.
And God bless you too.